Keanu Reeves sat quietly at the bus stop, his baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. After weeks of intense filming, he had decided to take a rare day to himself, away from the trailers, cameras, and the ever-present entourage that accompanied stardom. Sometimes, he just needed to remember what it felt like to be anonymous, to experience life as it unfolded around him without the filter of celebrity. The small suburban neighborhood in Atlanta where they were filming his latest action thriller wasn't accustomed to Hollywood stars wandering their streets. No one recognized the man in worn jeans and a simple gray t-shirt, sitting alone with his thoughts as the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the pavement. For Keanu, these moments of solitude were precious. They grounded him, reminded him of life before fame changed everything. He watched people passing by, each absorbed in their own world, their own stories unfolding. An elderly couple holding hands, a teenager lost in music flowing through her headphones, a young mother struggling with grocery bags while trying to keep her energetic 6-year-old son in check. "Mason, stay where I can see you," the mother called out, her voice strained as she set down her bags to readjust her grip. The little boy with bright blue eyes and tousled blonde hair giggled in response, his attention captured by a butterfly that had landed on a nearby flower. "Look, Mom. Look what I found." Keanu smiled, remembering the simple wonder of childhood, when every discovery felt magical. The mother glanced up briefly. "That's wonderful, honey, but please stay away from the street." Mason nodded absently, already distracted by the butterfly taking flight again. The mother turned her attention back to organizing her groceries, trusting her son would heed her warning. Down the road, a silver sedan rounded the corner. The driver, a man in his 30s wearing a business suit, glanced down at his buzzing phone. Just a quick look, he thought to himself. Just 1 second. Keanu's attention shifted between the distracted driver and the little boy who was now following the butterfly as it fluttered toward the street. Time seemed to slow as Keanu processed what was about to happen. The boy stepping off the curb, the car accelerating, the driver's eyes still on his phone. "No!" Keanu shouted, but his voice was lost in the ambient sounds of the neighborhood. Without hesitation, Keanu launched himself from the bench. His body responded with the muscle memory of countless action scenes. But this wasn't a carefully choreographed stunt with safety measures in place. This was real life, with real consequences. 3 long strides brought him to the edge of the sidewalk. The boy had already stepped into the street, still watching the butterfly, oblivious to the approaching danger. The car was less than 30 feet away, the driver finally looking up, eyes widening in horror as he slammed on the brakes. But it was too late. The car wouldn't stop in time. Keanu dove forward, his arms outstretched, catching Mason around the waist. With one powerful movement, he twisted his body mid-air, shielding the child as they rolled away from the car's path. The sickening screech of tires against asphalt filled the air, followed by a horrifying snap as Keanu's leg collided with the curb at an unnatural angle. Pain exploded through his body, but he maintained his protective embrace around Mason, ensuring the boy landed safely on top of him rather than on the hard concrete. For a moment, the world went silent. Then came the screams, the running footsteps, the chaos of realization. "Mason! Oh my God! Mason!" The mother dropped her bags, groceries spilling across the sidewalk as she ran toward her son. The little boy was crying, more from shock than injury, as Keanu gently released him. "You're okay," Keanu whispered through gritted teeth, fighting to remain conscious as waves of pain radiated from his leg. "You're okay now." The driver had stopped the car and stumbled out, face ashen. "I didn't see him. I only looked down for a second." The mother gathered Mason in her arms, sobbing as she checked him for injuries. Finding only minor scrapes, she turned to Keanu, who was attempting to sit up despite the obvious agony he was in. "You saved my son," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You saved my baby." It was only then that recognition dawned on her face. You're Keanu Reeves." Keanu managed a strained smile, sweat beading on his forehead as he fought against the pain. "Just a guy who was in the right place," he murmured. Bystanders had gathered now, someone calling for an ambulance, another helping Keanu into a more comfortable position, while being careful not to move his clearly broken leg. The driver of the car stood frozen in shock, the reality of what had almost happened, what had been prevented only by Keanu's split-second action, sinking in. "I was on my phone," he admitted, voice hollow. "I looked down at a text. I could have—" He couldn't finish the sentence, the weight of potential tragedy too heavy to voice. Keanu's eyes met the driver's. There was no accusation in his gaze, only understanding. "We all make mistakes," he said quietly. "What matters is learning from them." Mason, still sniffling, looked up at his mother. "He flew like the heroes in the movies, Mom. He flew to save me." The mother couldn't stop crying as she reached out to grasp Keanu's hand. "I can never repay you. Never." Keanu winced as another wave of pain washed over him, but he squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Seeing him safe is all the payment I need." The paramedics arrived within minutes, though to those waiting, it felt like hours. As they prepared to load Keanu into the ambulance, news of what had happened was already spreading through the neighborhood. Phones captured images of the humble Hollywood star being placed on a stretcher, his face contorted in pain, but still managing to give a thumbs up to concerned onlookers. At the hospital, X-rays confirmed what everyone already suspected. Keanu had suffered a complex fracture that would require surgery and months of rehabilitation. When reporters arrived, eager for the story of heroism that was lighting up social media, Keanu declined interviews. Instead, he sent a simple message through his publicist. "Anyone would have done the same. The only hero here is a little boy who reminded me how precious every moment truly is." Production on his film was delayed, costing the studio millions, but not a single executive complained. Some things transcended business, and Keanu's selfless act was one of them. 3 weeks later, as Keanu was being discharged from the hospital, leaning heavily on crutches, he found a surprise waiting in the lobby. Mason and his mother stood beside a handmade poster covered in childish drawings of superheroes with Keanu's face. Behind them stood dozens of local children and their parents, each holding thank you cards and small gifts. "We wanted to show you what a difference one moment can make," Mason's mother explained, tears in her eyes. "Not just for us, but for everyone who heard your story." Mason approached shyly, offering Keanu a crayon drawing of a man in a cape catching a little boy. "Mom says you don't wear a cape in your movies, but I think you should. Real heroes wear capes." Keanu knelt down carefully, balancing on his good leg and crutches, to meet Mason at eye level. "The real heroes," he said, gently tapping Mason's chest, "are the ones who keep their hearts open to the world, no matter what. Promise me you'll always look both ways before crossing the street, but never stop chasing butterflies." Mason nodded solemnly, throwing his arms around Keanu's neck in a tight hug. In the months that followed, as Keanu underwent physical therapy and gradually returned to work, he received thousands of letters from people inspired by his action. Many shared their own stories of split-second decisions that changed lives. Some admitted to putting down their phones while driving after hearing what had happened. When Keanu finally returned to the film set, walking with just a slight limp, the entire crew gave him a standing ovation. The director approached with a revised script. We rewrote some scenes to accommodate your recovery, he explained. But we also added something new, a moment where your character risks everything to save a child. We figured it wasn't much of a stretch for you to play. Keanu smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. Sometimes the most important roles we play aren't on camera at all. Years later, when asked about the incident in interviews, Keanu would always deflect, uncomfortable with being labeled a hero. But in a quiet Atlanta neighborhood, a butterfly mural adorns the wall near a certain bus stop. Beneath it, a simple plaque reads, "Heroism isn't about having extraordinary powers. It's about making extraordinary choices in ordinary moments." And sometimes, on sunny afternoons, a teenager named Mason brings his younger siblings to see the mural, telling them the story of how a movie star taught him the difference between the heroes we watch on screen and the heroes who walk among us every day.